Finally, the moment a couple of you have been waiting for.
It's all like bing bong, Jack.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Duval and St. Johns County. The show for Jag fans by Jag fans.
You can't have a newcomer come in and steal the show.
Here are your hosts, Franklin and Michael how you say it? DeZoba. Welcome to the Jaggernaut Podcast. All right, next episode after the draft, we gave you the sort of the build-up, a little bit of a primer, the last episode, and the draft picks are in. Everybody, all the franchises went to Kansas City for a 3-day affair. All the draft picks have been drafted, including the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have their selections made, and we're going to discuss the selections today on the Jaggernaut Podcast. I'm Frank. That's Mike. You want to?
Duval.
Let's start this off by just showing who was selected, so we can. There they are, right there. So let me run these down. We got Anton Harris. Round 1, offensive tackle. Brenton Strange, tight end. Round 2. Round 3, Tank Bigsby, running back. Round 4, Ventrell Miller, linebacker, Florida. Round 4, Tyler Lacey, defensive end.
You said Florida? Move.
Round 5, Yasir Abdullah, linebacker. They got him listed as.
Well, I see it as an edge. He's an edge guy.
Yeah, that's why I kind of slid. Yeah. Round 5 also gave us Antonio Johnson, safety. We got round 6, Parker Washington, wide receiver. Round 6, Christian Braswell, cornerback, and Eric Hallett, defensive back. Round 7 brought us Cooper Hodges, offensive tackle, Raymond Vohesic, defensive tackle, and Derek Parrish, edge. So that's the draft class. It is a large draft class, 13.
13.
The largest we've ever had. So,
that might have been
Mike, what say you?
In the modern draft era, that might be the largest ever.
Actually, I think I heard the Rams had 14 in this draft. So they actually
really?
beat us this draft.
They beat us. Man. I wonder how they did that, trading away
right.
all of their picks. Anyway, Brenton Strange. To me, that's a strange pick.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I thought there were better tight ends on the board. Now, granted, I don't watch Penn State. Nobody watches Penn State here. So I don't really know whether the guy is really good or not. I'll tell you the best thing that I heard about him that I've seen is I think he has like a 94% catch to target. So he doesn't drop many passes, and a lot of them are actually contested balls.
Right.
He's big enough to maybe do something as far as a chipper to chip on the edge before he releases. Man, but I'm not. Man, there was Michael Mayer from Notre Dame still out there. There were several guys who were still out there. You wanted a blocker. There was the guy from Georgia. He was still out there. To me, it was a strange pick, especially when you had O'Cyrus Torrence still on the board. And I wouldn't have been upset had we went offense. I wouldn't have been upset.
Offensive line, you mean?
Yeah, offensive line. Wouldn't have been upset. Brian Branch, he was still out there. We know we needed a corner, right? So is Brenton Strange better than those two guys? If he doesn't develop into that, Balky blew it again. And I say that because the jury's still out on last year's draft. So to me, it's funny because in the last podcast, I remember complaining and saying, well, it's like a lotto ticket, right? The more lottery tickets you have, the better your odds of winning. So I don't want to get too upset at some of these picks because truth is we don't really know. And the analysts, the talking heads, they'll tell you that they know, but they don't. If they did, everybody would have had Tom Brady up there. Everybody would have had DK Metcalf up there. Everybody would have had Russell Wilson up there. They didn't.
Yeah.
So they don't know either. They just take their. It's weird. It's the same thing about 5 stars when they come out of high school. Just because the guy is a 5-star recruit doesn't mean he's gonna transition into a good player at the collegiate level.
Right.
Just because you have a collegiate player who's good doesn't mean he's going to translate into an NFL caliber player. So we got, 13? We got 13 guys. We truly need to hit on probably 4 of these dudes. They don't have, only one of them technically has to be a day 1 starter.
Yeah.
And the other guys could potentially be jars in the shelf. But we need to see them come in and give us something from a secondary role.
Right.
And I think if we don't see that, this was a bust. And the reason why I say that is because, yes, we traded back. Yes, we picked up additional value. But when you can't pick up a quality player with that value, did you really move forward? Was it really a progression or was it a regression? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to convince me that 6 round players are going to be as good as 1 or 2 second round players.
Yeah.
And then the Jaguars came out and they said, well, we tried to trade up. I call horseshit. Horseshit.
Really? You think they were lying about that?
No. Here's what I think. I think they tried, but I think they were trying to nickel and dime people. Instead of just coming up and saying, we want this dude, what do you need? What will it take for us to get here? And then giving up that, they said, "Oh, we'll trade you a 6th rounder." Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. They said they couldn't find trade partners.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you got to make it worth the other team's while if you truly believe that's the guy.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I did hear. I think it might have been Mike Dempsey I was listening to, and he said. Anyway, somebody said that you can't go too far past the number, the board or whatever, the Jimmy Johnson
value right,
chart.
The value
because
chart.
once that reputation gets out there that you're kind of an easy target, they're going to ask for more when the Jaguars call, which I can see makes sense. I do think that there's sometimes when you have to sit pat, and then there's sometimes maybe when it's a guy you really, really want, maybe you do have to add a little bit more incentive. I thought it was interesting. I was listening to the paid talking Jaguar people, and
the talking heads.
John Oehser said, and they're always going to put the spin on it. John Oehser said, people are making it seem like because they couldn't trade back up that it was a failed draft. And then he said, it's not a failed draft, and I can't even remember why he said it wasn't a failed draft, but I kid you not, it couldn't have been had to have been at the most a minute later. Then he's saying, I wouldn't be surprised if they do something, if they go after, and he meant free agent, a slot corner. I'm thinking, wait a minute. You're telling me it wasn't a failed draft. They got 13 draft picks and didn't do one of the few needs that they had. I mean, that's a contradiction right there in like a minute's time. And I think that encompasses the issue with the draft. I mean, you never know what's going to transpire. These guys could be great players. But I think by their own mouths, they sort of indicated that they failed in their strategy. So they had a strategy. I think they felt that the value for the positions they needed was probably somewhere, I would say, starting in the 2nd round, 3rd, 4th round guys that they were going to trade back, get additional ammunition, trade back up, sort of cluster in that 2nd, 3rd, 4th round area and try to meet the value to the need. And that's something that probably is worth, sort of talking about, which is the fact that that's why trades take place, because teams have needs. There's also the value of the player. You know, you don't want to, as an example, you don't want to, Jaguars have Trevor Lawrence. They're not going to, if the quarterback's the most valuable player, they're not going to draft a quarterback. So what happens is you try to meet that need, but you don't want to bust the value. So that's why trades typically take place. You want to trade out, and that appears what they were trying to do. Nobody thought, and even including them, that they should come away or would come away with 13 draft picks, because they're just not. I mean, the good thing is, I guess, they have a expanded practice squad now, thanks to COVID, because we're gonna need that, because not even half these guys are going to be on the actual
are going to make
roster.
the team.
I wouldn't.
No.
Wouldn't
Okay.
think.
So if you include the additional 10 undrafted free agents, that is now 23 players. 23 players.
Yeah.
And here it's pretty simple. For 23 players, right? You need 5 of them to make the team, with 3 given good hours being backups and 2 actually legitimately providing something very positive, overplaying their drafted value.
Right.
So we know this happens, but it doesn't happen. It's not all that. It does happen, but does it really happen to the Jaguars? Right? Maybe James Robinson. That's the last one that I can say. That, but I can give you 10 where we drafted in the first round and they were awful.
Well, since you brought up James Robinson, that's a good segue to talk about the next pick that we had. And we haven't talked about the first, so we'll save that for a little bit. You brought up Brenton Strange, which I don't mind that pick. I actually think that, well, let's jump back to that, but you talked about James Robinson, so the next pick was Tank Bigsby, the running back. And the reason why I bring that up is that this was an interesting draft. It's been a little bit since we've seen the running back be valued, apparently. The Jags drafted Tank Bigsby in the 3rd. And it's an interesting, because I wonder what the scenario is with this guy now, because we could have taken Kelee Ringo, by the way, and that's an interesting.
You mean a cornerback?
What's that?
You mean a cornerback, like a position of need?
Yeah, exactly right. Instead, we took a guy that I don't. And if you look at the tape, I get it. Like, this is, to me, this was BAP over need. So evidently, they said this guy Tank Bigsby is way better running back than Kelee Ringo as a corner. They had to think that, because corner's a need. And we didn't go that direction. And yet, as you laid out, running back is a position that it seems to be the case that you can get. You don't have to go high.
6th round, 7th round.
Isaiah
undrafted.
Pacheco is the example. Everybody's loving that guy in Kansas City. He was a 7th round draft pick, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. So you don't need to draft a running back high, and we decided to go with this guy. That was the first indication for me that the draft was going off the rails a little bit. I don't mind if they'd have picked it back up, fine, but that was an issue for me. I didn't mind Brenton Strange. So let me just go to Brenton Strange for a minute. My thoughts on Brenton Strange is this: if we'd have drafted, is it Dontel Washington? I don't remember his first name. The Georgia tight end. Darnell. Nobody would have batted an eye. Nobody would have said a word about it, because that's the common thing. That would have been the way everybody was sort of looking at the board. He made sense based on that. Brenton Strange wasn't up on that list, but same position. Well, my thought is that guy really going to be different than Chris Manhertz? And we did need that position, by the way. What I'm hearing about Brenton Strange is that he's a much more dynamic talent that was in an offense that was hindered by lack of quarterback play. So he's a wise guy pick. He's one of these guys that the guys who really know football go, that guy could really turn into something. I heard, I think forget his name. His last name's Cosell. Brent Cosell, maybe? What was his name? Greg Cosell. Greg Cosell compared him to George Kittle. Now, I'm not saying he'll be George Kittle, but it's nice to see that comparison.
Well, so I was pretty pissed off about the pick, but then they came out, and I think it was Balky, or maybe it was one of the other talking heads down at the stadium, basically said this is a guy that Doug Peterson wanted.
They were excited to get him too.
Yeah. So Doug Peterson said, this is my type of guy. Yeah. This is who I want. So I'm like, okay. Again, we know that these mock drafts, these analysts that put out these mock drafts, we know they're wrong. Yeah. They are more wrong than they are right.
Yeah. They just never get called out on the wrong. Usually.
Right. They just don't ever get called out on.
Right.
So when I look at that, I'm like, oh man, here we go again, same old Jags. But then I'm like, well, hold on. Doug Peterson said, this is my dude. This is a guy I want, who I can use, who looks like this or whatever. And he may not develop into that. But at this point, I want to trust Doug P. I still don't trust Balky, but I do trust Doug P. And if he says that's a guy that he wants, that he believes he can play and use, okay. And it's the same thing with Tank Bigsby. I watched some of his highlights. The dude gets 2 or 3 yards every time.
I get it. He looks like a player.
He looks like somebody who could lay the wood.
Bye-bye Snoop Connor. That's what I can say about that.
Good, because I liked Mikael Sargent. My eyes told me Mikael Sargent was the better running back, and then we kept Snoop Connor.
Yeah, probably because they drafted him. That was the other thing, and it goes back to the concept of need. We got your Michael Hasty. I forget the name of the guy we just brought over.
D'Ernest Johnson.
Yeah, D'Ernest Johnson. So I didn't really see the need there. So you really must have loved the talent.
Yes, or he truly was the best player
and Peterson board. And Peterson is one in an offense where he's got 2 tight ends, he's got 2 running backs, he's got those positions that he can really count on. I think he thinks that he just improved his artillery, which is a good thing.
Let's move on to the next guy.
Hold on. Before you move on, we got to talk about Anton Harrison first. Just at least real quick.
I thought we were going to pull that back to the back.
No. Okay. Here's what I wanted to do. So I want to contextualize the Brenton Strange a little bit, because most people think, and including me, I liked what the Bills did when they drafted Dalton Kincaid, because you brought up O'Cyrus Torrence, and he went with the Bills' 2nd pick. And we traded back, and we could have had O'Cyrus Torrence. We traded back, and we got Strange instead later. So if we'd have come away with Dalton Kincaid and O'Cyrus Torrence, I think most people would have been fine with that. I think most people look at the Bills' first 2 picks and they think they were good. And we did the same thing. We just took offensive line first, and then we came back and we took tight end. So I that's what I want to sort of lock in. And I do want to say that I said I was okay with tight end in the first round, because that looked like where the value was going to be. So if we went Dalton Kincaid, I wasn't going to complain about that, mainly because Doug Peterson, if he liked Dalton Kincaid, most people like Dalton Kincaid, we could come back in the 2nd round and do offensive line or defensive end or whatever we were going to do. Obviously, well, let me ask you this. So we did get Anton Harrison, and we didn't know this at the time when we talked last week, which was that Cam Robinson was suspended for PEDs. So he's going to be out for 6 weeks, which obviously does raise. Do you think that had anything to do with the drafting of Anton Harrison?
Yes.
I tend to think not, but
I think it now. Granted,
added to it. Sure.
The only reason why I would even say maybe not is because Doug Peterson came out and said that he's going to play right tackle. He is not our left tackle. Walker Little is going to be our starting day, barring injury. He is going to be our left tackle. This guy is going to be our right tackle.
Right.
So maybe at that point, and we needed a right tackle. We know we needed a right tackle.
We needed that.
So maybe at that point, they said, well, we can slide back, pick up some additional value, and still get who we thought is the highest rated right tackle on the board.
Now, that's the thing. That's a little confusing to me because when I see the grades on him, the summaries, he is really, really good at pass blocking. And if he has something that he needs to clean up, it's actually his run blocking. So that makes me think he's a left tackle, not a right tackle. And although I think Walker Little can play either one, Walker Little appears to be so bulky, he reminds me of a right tackle. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Hopefully, you got to trust in the establishment to be able to put the best players in the best position to succeed. That's not really our job. Our job is to criticize them when they fail at that.
Okay, when they fail, gotcha. All right, so
yeah, I mean, now we celebrate them. We celebrate them when they have success.
Yeah.
But man, unlike the talking heads that you hear on the radio, that you hear down at the stadium, I'm going to bust their ass if they're wrong. Everybody's already forgiven Balky because he brought in these free agents, but nobody's talking about his draft. Yeah. His last year draft is still shit. They haven't paid dividends yet. I'm not saying they won't pay dividends, but when they start to pay dividends, I'll start to slack up on Balky.
And this class could be the same way. You know, we're not going to know really how this lays out. So
yeah, and I'm okay with Anton Harris. I'm okay. The guy has played guard, he's played right tackle, he's played left tackle. So he is an offensive lineman, and I'm okay with that pick. I understood it. The minute I saw the Cam Robinson news, I was pretty assured that we were going to go tackle at some point.
Yeah. Well, which I thought anyway. But
now,
so round 4.
Had that not happened, we might have ended up with Dalton Kincaid.
Possibly.
Just saying. Round 4, Ventrell Miller, a linebacker. We can't get Chad Muma on the field, but you want to draft another linebacker?
This is the worst pick of the draft for me.
And then to make it worse, Balky's dumbass comes out there and starts talking about special teams.
Yep.
In round 4. Like, dude, man, he better be glad I am not an owner. I'm never going to be rich enough to own the Jags. You come out saying some stupid shit like that, and I will be all over you.
This pick was the worst pick. This was the head scratcher for me because of exactly what you said. We are already in the position where we drafted 2 linebackers, and we questioned that last year. And then we follow it up with another linebacker.
We drafted 3 linebackers last year. Walker is a line.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I'm taking the inside position.
Yeah, he's a linebacker.
But here's okay, I'm glad you brought that up because here's something that, do you think this is a sign that they are looking at putting Lloyd at edge?
No, because I think if that was the case, they would have already done that, at least attempted to do that last year, at least a little bit, just to see how it would go. And so I'll point to the Texans game, the last Texans game. Dude, by the time the start of the third quarter, we were blowing them out. They weren't even in the game anymore. If you want to see what somebody has at a different type of position, that's a great time to put it into Che.
Yeah.
They didn't do that. That combo we wanted, and we still probably want. It's not the defensive coordinator it isn't even on his radar.
Well,
so no, I don't know this pick. This guy he's undersized, he's small, he's not fast.
He's injured.
Yeah, and he has he has a broke foot. So I don't understand this.
Not a need. We have him on the roster. His name's Shaq Quarterman. We have this guy. We have him. And we don't play him either.
No.
So, I mean, I don't know.
No, and to make matters worse, he's from Florida.
Yeah.
How good do we do with Florida draft picks?
Yeah. That's not even including that,
what are we, 1 for 8?
It's a fair
I think
point.
we're literally 1 for 8.
Yeah.
And that one's Fred Taylor. That was like 30 years ago.
Right. Yeah, that's it's yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we've covered that enough. It's I'd give that an F, honestly. I mean, I honestly, when looking at the grades, I just don't think people are it's weird. You look at all these draft grades, everybody's B's. Like, what kind of grading system is this? Where it's the most hellacious curve ever. Like, the Eagles get an A, a few others get A's. Like, if you did a bad draft, you got a C. Like, maybe the Lions got a C. Everybody's got B's. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people like our draft more than I do, really. There are a few guys in there that they point to, and we'll get to them.
Yeah.
So Tyler Lacey, defensive line, Oklahoma State. Okay, I'm cool with this.
Yeah.
We need D-line help.
Yep.
I'm not upset with this. Good pick.
Yep.
Yasser Abdullah, edge, Louisville. Now, this guy is a high twitch dude.
Right.
So this may be your affect the passer guy.
Right.
Right. They say he can set the edge. And dude, maybe you could do that in college, but this ain't college. Like, you ain't in Kansas anymore. So I would need to see that in the NFL before I'll believe it. But at first, I would bring him in as somewhat of a rotational pass rusher guy.
I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. Who's the guy that we picked up from San Francisco last year that we wanted to keep but went to the Titans?
Man, as soon as you called me out, his name went out of my head.
That's weird how that happens. But anyway,
yeah,
he was a situational pass rusher. And he was slight. He was tall, but he was not large. So my thought is this guy has replaced him. I like this pick. It's exactly as you said. These are the times when you take picks like that. Yes, this guy's undersized. But we see this happen where, and we're not asking this guy to come in. I wouldn't imagine that we're going to ask him to come in anything other than definite run or a definite pass situation.
Right. So, you have one job.
No issue with
that. Get
the
quarterback before he gets rid of the ball.
Let me throw out some stats this guy had last year. 306 pass rushing snaps, 59 pressures, 19.3 pressure rating, 11 sacks, 15 QB hits, 36 run stops, and a 90.8 PFF pass rush grade. Yep. And he ran a 4.4. So, yeah, I'm excited about this guy.
Special teams! Woo!
This is the type of guy that I think, can really use on our defense.
Yeah, and then the 5th round, this is where you take those guys. This is where if we would have got Ventrell Miller here, I wouldn't have cared. I'd have been like, he's a 5th round pick. Maybe they're just taking a flyer because they saw something.
Special teams.
Yeah, special teams.
We're going to have one hell of a special teams. And if we don't, fail draft. I can tell you what, we could probably judge this draft right away in season. If our special teams isn't great, this was a failed draft.
Based off of what they said.
I mean, when you draft 13 players, that's what you're drafting. You're drafting special teams, dude. That's what you're drafting. Especially when you don't actually fulfill the needs that you know you had going in.
So Antonio Johnson, have him listed as a safety.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this is where a lot of people are saying we got value.
Right.
because a lot of people had this guy going as a potential second rounder.
People like this guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
the
like
Jag
him.
fan base really loved this guy. They were calling for this guy to be drafted when he got drafted. So
they like him, and he very well could be our slot corner.
It's interesting though, because
I know he doesn't. He looks like more like a strong safety, less like a free safety.
And even Balky said that, so you almost feel like they didn't draft this guy for slot corner, which you just assume they would have because it's such a need.
Right.
When are you going to address the needs, Balky?
Yeah. Wait. Maybe Christian Boswell down in the 6th round.
Yeah.
Or who was the other DB we got?
Eric Hallett. Second. And look, I looked at these guys, and you never know what you're looking at really. You see highlights and stuff, and I'll be honest, they didn't really blow me away. Christian Braswell looks like he's got some size to him. When I watched his highlights, I was like, this guy must have tested really well. He must have been one of these combine guys, and sure enough, that's what he is. He's a guy, he's got all the traits, but he doesn't have the tape, Eric seemed to be a guy that's got a little bit better tape, but he looks like he has some ball skills, but nothing really, he doesn't really jump off. My guess is these guys go to practice squad. That's my guess. I don't know. Maybe they jump out and do stuff, because you don't know. It's rolls of the dice. So
all right. So another pick that people are saying that we actually got really good value on is Parker Washington.
Yeah, right.
The wide receiver. Now I think our 5 wide receivers are set, or I think our 5 are set, right?
Yeah.
But this guy may be able to come in. Now I don't know about his speed. I don't think it's blazing.
It's
speed.
not fast now.
Yeah.
It's not a burner.
If he had blazing speed, damn.
Yeah, he'd have been gone.
Right.
That's the reason why he wasn't drafted high.
Okay, but he is hard to bring down.
Yeah.
He is, I want to say Laviska Shenault-ish.
Yeah, no, that's
and that
fair.
He is very hard to tackle.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's the same guy, but it's almost like a small running back out there,
He's almost like Christian Kirk with a little Laviska Shenault thrown in there.
Okay. And I think that's fair. And maybe they might be able to use him here and there situationally.
Future slot guy.
Yeah. In the 6th round, I'm cool taking this chance.
Love
cool.
it. Punt returner instantly. Well, I don't know.
Not if he's fat. Not if he's not fast.
Agnew's what? Does he do punts? I don't know who we have. I can't remember who he had doing punts, but he's a special teams guy. You can see him. I can see him doing punt returns if we need him to. He's definitely a guy that I can see making the roster, which is rare on this draft class, I think.
Yeah, and it's possible. But again, so we got Cooper Hodges out of offensive line out of Appalachian State. People are okay on this guy.
Yeah.
And especially, look, it's a 7th round dude. 7th round dude. You make the team, practice squad, you're doing great.
Yeah. And he's a guard right tackle prospect. So he's definitely making the practice squad unless he just, comes out and looks like straight garbage for some reason. And he's a hometown guy, which is, something that's nice because he wanted to be a Jaguar because he's a Jaguar fan, grew up a Jaguar fan. So it's good that we've got somebody on our team that you can root for in that respect. And it's a position of need. We need to improve the interior of the line, and it wouldn't be bad to have a right tackle, a swing tackle, and he looks like the type of Tyler Shatley-ish type player that every team needs.
Okay, and then we got Raymond Volsack. I almost want to call him Balzac.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said.
Yeah, no, V-O, Volsack. Defensive line, North Carolina. This is one of the bigger dudes, right? This is maybe a backup to Hambleton, like a one technique.
Yeah, I would say I don't have his stats in front of me, but I did look into him a little bit. I would say he's probably not super tall, but he's not short by any means, but he's pretty wide. One of the rotational possibilities for the defensive line, maybe.
Now, I thought I did remember hearing them say that he does do well at holding the point. He doesn't get pushed around a whole lot.
Well, I would hope so because
I
don't think he's super dynamic. But, of course, in regards to rushing the passer or anything like that, he's not quick twitch. Nobody's confusing him with that. But, yeah, this is the type of guy. He seems like a hard-nosed. He's like the type of guy Pittsburgh Steelers like to draft. I think that's and you always need guys like that. You need guys that are just, lunch pail, blue collar type guys that go to work, and hopefully he turns into something like that. My guess is he probably is on a practice squad to start this year, and maybe we can start hearing about him, being something next year.
All right, so this
offseason.
Yeah, maybe we'll find out. That's why I love preseason. I tried to tell Candy. Anyway, I was talking to my wife, and she said that she doesn't really like preseason, doesn't care for it. And I'm like, I love preseason because preseason's where you get to see their scrubs versus our scrubs, and then you can, from the players that dominate,
right?
Those are the guys that have a chance to make the roster as a starter, and I like to see that.
Yeah.
So I dig the preseason. I like preseason. There's always something there. All right, so the last dude, this dude's a little bit odd, right? So Derek Parrish.
Yeah,
right?
He's different, yeah.
They have him as a defensive line from Houston.
Oh, is that where you see him? They got him as a defensive line?
They got him as a defensive line.
Okay.
But he's well too small to be defensive line.
Yeah, well, he's a rush edge if he's on the line.
So he could be a rush edge. He could be a fullback.
Yeah, that's what I thought that the team had him listed at, was actually fullback, which I think is interesting. If I'm not mistaken, I think he actually played defensive end in college majoritively, but he did play fullback some.
He did play fullback, yeah. So this guy here, he's a footballer.
Yeah.
That's what he does. He plays football.
Yeah, nothing wrong with this type of guy at all.
Yeah.
This is the type of pick you draft here.
Yeah, in the 7th round, this is where you take this type of guy.
Yeah.
He is a footballer. And then you try to find out where he can help you. He can help you on special teams, sweet. If he can play fullback, sweet. Maybe he has some kind of bend. I read he didn't. And if you can't bend the edge as a defensive end, you're not going to play very long.
Yeah.
So, and he's undersized. He is quick, but he's undersized with not much moves. I don't see him even as a rotational guy. I see him as a fullback / special teamer. That's what I see.
Yeah, I think what he could be is a package that Peterson brings out for goal lines. I could see that sort of situation taking place. Like you said, he's going to be on special teams, running downfield probably. And yeah, I didn't see. He's a low center of gravity, try hard. I thought he was decently quick, but yeah, I didn't see great bend or great moves when I watched the tape on him. So yeah, he's limited, and that's probably what we're going to see, is just a guy. But I like this type of guy. I can't remember. I think is it the 49ers? I think they have some guy that.
Juszczyk?
Yeah, Juszczyk. Yeah, I kind of look at him in a way like that. Every now and again, these fullbacks just get a bone thrown their way. It's a guy you can.
That's why the fans love him. Look, yeah. we love the underdog. And if you want to cheer for somebody, this guy is a guy to cheer for. This and the hometown offensive line. Those are the two guys I would say you cheer for. At least I hope to make the team.
Yeah.
So, because other than that, I don't think they really give you very much. Again, the offensive line guy could develop into something over long term. But anything past, say, round 4, round 5, round 6, round 7, those are all your developmental guys anyway, and your special teams core. But apparently we drafted special teams throughout the draft. Way to go, Trent Baalke. Way to go. That's all to you.
I still hold out hope that they've seen the light. I mean, we talked about them putting Darius Williams at outside because he was not good, a slot corner. And, well, we didn't draft a corner that looks like we're replacing Darius Williams on the outside, so I think he's still going to be there. So they saw the light there. Maybe we are up to something. And remember, I said that was one of the issues with Nolan Smith. I'm like, I don't want to draft, and it was nothing against Nolan Smith because players, have their specialties and stuff, but he's an undersized guy, and he's so high in the draft. And I always thought, well, it's because he's on the Georgia Bulldogs, and he's just this character guy, and everybody loves that sort of guy. But it's like, for us, I didn't want to see him at edge because he's exactly the same size as our linebacker that we were kind of wondering, I don't know, maybe we got this guy out of position. If we put Lloyd at the edge, we put Walker at defensive end, and you take two guys that you thought highly of, and you're putting them right beside each other, and you're putting them right at the quarterback or closer to the quarterback, and you bring Muma in, who seems like he's a middle linebacker. I think that's the way to go, and maybe this guy comes in and backs.
What do we know, man? We don't know. We don't know shit. Trent Baalke knows. He knows special teams.
What did you think about the other AFC South competitors, their drafts?
I thought.
I don't know all their drafts, obviously.
Honestly,
but
okay, so it's like this. They potentially could get better, but it's going to take at least a year, maybe two.
What about the fact that they all drafted quarterbacks?
I saw that coming.
I kind of didn't. I was like,
I saw that
I
coming.
bought the whole hype with the Texans just because I wasn't sure DeMeco Ryans was. I forget. I can't. His name always escapes me. But the guy that they traded up high to get the 49ers. Just hasn't done anything there.
Oh, Trey Lance.
Trey Lance, yeah. And I'm thinking, did that sully the idea of taking a quarterback high? And that
if it did, you know what sealed it? Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that is the thing. It's like
they got to see that firsthand.
We are now in the lead, and everybody's playing catch up. We're like, we've got to get our Trevor Lawrence, which it makes you feel good as a Jags fan, but. The Texans were an odd draft to me. The idea, everybody was praising them. They're like, oh, they got the two of the best players. And I'm thinking, they traded a ton to get up and get Will Anderson, who people barely had as a blue chip guy. Barely. It was because this draft wasn't that stacked with talent that he was considered blue chip. He was productive, but traits-wise, nobody looks at the guy and goes, he's amazing, So you went all the way up to get this guy, and the rumor was that was DeMeco Ryans' guy. So they made this deal. The GM goes, well, let me do what we're supposed to do, apparently, draft Stroud, and I'll give you your guy. We'll trade it. We'll see if we can trade up. If we can, we'll make it work. And I think Arizona made out by doing that. And I think the Colts, they got Richardson, and then obviously the Titans got Levis. Both are project quarterbacks. So the worst team got the best quarterback. The two better teams, who I think have a better roster right now, got the worst quarterbacks, or at least the quarterbacks that this year, as what I think you were alluding to, they aren't going to be good this year, you wouldn't imagine. So, I don't know. Well,
even Stroud isn't going to be great this year. I can see him.
His team isn't that good either, right?
I can see him potentially becoming a good quarterback.
Yeah,
but I don't think he's going to be great.
And I don't know much about him, but I know.
Yeah, the guy from Florida, what was it, Anderson?
What's that?
Who was from Florida? Who's the quarterback from Florida? Richardson. Richardson's going to take some time to develop.
Yeah.
He has some nice things about him.
Yeah.
But the worst thing about him is his passing game. And that's where you got to be on point. And it's the same thing about Levitt.
Yeah.
The worst thing about Will Levitt is his passing game. And that's what you
decision making
need.
too. They kind of think his decision making is bad.
As far as I'm concerned, that's part of the passing game.
Yeah.
So
no,
you can
it
run.
is. Yeah,
you can run.
Maybe the biggest part, but I mean,
you can run all you want to.
But Richardson is more like I guess I didn't watch Florida. I guess he's throwing to the right guys, but just like not anywhere in the vicinity. I don't know, but yeah. So he's got to clean that up, and then maybe he can turn into Lamar Jackson because that's basically what they're hoping for. He's Lamar Jackson if he turns into it.
Like a Cam Newton.
Yeah, Cam Newton, Lamar.
His body and his run style are more like Cam Newton's. Now the dude's got a cannon.
Yeah, well, Lamar's got a cannon. Newton has a cannon.
Yeah, but he
Michael
can't aim
Vick had a cannon. I mean, you got to be able to get it to the guy. You got to have some ability to touch. You got to throw it with touch. You got to throw this. You can get it there, but if it's 2 yards away from the guy on the out route, it's great that you got it there, but it wasn't where it needed to be. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. So, definitely different drafts. We went a totally different direction than the other guys did. So we filled our roster up, we think, with some depth. Some depth. That's what we got. Not anybody flashy for sure. So.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
All right. So I think we did a pretty good job of covering the players and
right. That's right. Let me remind you: don't get too down, don't get too high.
Yeah, I don't
just trust in Doug Peterson. That's all I can tell you because that's about all you got.
Got Trevor.
Well, we got Trevor, but I mean, I'm talking about as far as the draft goes.
We got Benton Strange now.
So yeah,
ready to roll.
Yeah, what they got a theme? It got a theme song already.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
What's that? People are strange.
Oh, okay.
Blah blah blah. Whatever.
Yeah, the Doors.
Yeah. See, there you go. So, I'm doing the job for the DJ down at the
there
stadium.
You go. Yeah, no, I see where you're heading. I like it. Yeah. If they listen to the show, they'll get a free idea.
There you go. That's what we do.
All right.
It's all for Duval.
Hopefully you stuck around for the whole show, got some information from us that maybe you didn't know or hadn't heard, and you share, and all that jazz.
Comment
too. Yeah, let us know what you thought, what you think. We're definitely interested. So I guess until next time, we will see you.
Deuces.